On paper, Helena Rhodes was the kind of woman the world bowed to, CEO of a global logistics and tech conglomerate, featured on magazine covers, invited to speak at elite forums, trending regularly on business news. The articles called her the woman who could move products and policies with a single phone call. Her net worth had long ago crossed the $1 billion mark. Her days were measured in deals, not minutes. But that morning, despite the calendar alerts and private jets, Helena was irritated. A multi-billion-dollar merger she had been crafting for 18 months was in its final stage. A competing consortium from Europe was trying to derail it with a surprise counteroffer. Lawyers and bankers were circling like vultures. Every second felt like it could tip the balance between triumph and humiliation. She needed everything to run with military precision. So when the sleek black company car she used for high-stakes meetings arrived 5 minutes late to her penthouse, irritation flared into anger. The rear door opened with a soft click. Helena slid inside without really looking. Her phone was already in her hand, fingers flying over urgent emails. Traffic, she snapped. Or just enjoying the scenery? The driver glanced at her in the rear-view mirror. Mid-40s, dark hair threaded with gray, shirt perfectly pressed, posture straight. His eyes were calm, not servile. "Apologies, ma'am," he said evenly. "There was an accident on the expressway. I took an alternate route to make up the time." Helena scoffed. "Next time, take the route where accidents don't exist. I don't lose billion-dollar deals because someone's father can't drive." She meant it as a joke, a sharp, impatient jab to blow off steam. He didn't laugh. He simply said understood and merged back into the flow of traffic with smooth, practiced control. Helena barely noticed. Her mind was on the upcoming meeting with the European delegation. Some of them didn't speak English fluently. They relied heavily on interpreters. Her team had arranged for translators and legal experts. Everything was supposed to be locked down. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know yet, was that before the day was over, a single, unexpected language would become the difference between signing a $1.2 billion deal and watching it evaporate in front of her. And that the only person in the room who would understand that language was a man she had just mocked in the back seat of her own car. His name was Marco Alvarez. He was a widowed father. He spoke 10 languages. And when the most critical moment of her career arrived, Helena would discover that the man she treated like part of the upholstery was, in fact, the one person capable of saving everything she'd built. Before this story unfolds, there's something important. Where in the world are you watching this from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments and stay with this video until the very end. Because what happens between the CEO and her driver may change the way you look at status, respect, and the real value of the people you ignore every day. The city blurred past the tinted windows, a mosaic of glass towers, construction cranes, and people too small for Helena to notice. She sat in the back, knees crossed, designer suit perfectly tailored, scrolling through a storm of messages. Her assistant's name flashed on the screen. Helena came the voice through her Bluetooth earpiece, rushed and breathless. The European delegation landed early. They've moved the briefing up by 45 minutes. "Of course they have," Helena muttered. "Predators don't like waiting." "They're bringing 2 additional advisors," the assistant continued. "Names weren't on the original list. We're trying to get profiles now." "Do that," Helena said. "I want everything. Education, previous deals, political connections, the brand of coffee they prefer. No surprises." She ended the call with a tap and leaned her head back, eyes closing for a second. In the quiet, she became aware of the car, the low hum of the engine, the faint scent of clean leather, the way the driver's hands were steady on the wheel. Fingers relaxed, no unnecessary movements. They slipped between lanes like the road had been laid out just for them. "New driver?" she asked suddenly, opening her eyes. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "Started last month. My name is Marco." "Previous one quit?" she said. "He transferred to another division," Marco replied. "Wanted more regular hours. New baby at home." Helena snorted softly. "People and their domestic emergencies," she said. "I assume you don't have anything that could interfere with your availability?" the slightest pause. "I have a daughter," he said, "but I manage." Widowed father. She thought automatically, cataloging the detail without really caring. They all had stories. Sobriety chips, sick parents, children, debt, life. Her world made those things background noise. "You manage," she repeated. "Good, because today is not the day to discover otherwise." "Yes, ma'am," he said. They hit a patch of congestion. Cars were stacked up in front of them, horns flickering in frustration. Marco's eyes flicked to the navigation screen. Without a word, he eased out of the stuck lane and slipped down an exit ramp. "We're not supposed to take side streets," Helena snapped. "Security protocol." "The main route will add 25 minutes, he said calmly. "You said you don't lose billion-dollar deals because someone's father can't drive." The words, thrown back gently but unmistakably, hung in the air. For the first time, she felt a faint prickle of guilt. Her earlier comment had been sharper than she intended. Something in the way he said someone's father made it clear he'd heard the joke, and it wasn't funny. She folded her arms, looking out at the smaller streets they were now cutting through. Older buildings, murals on brick walls, people crossing between shops and cafes. A different city than the one she usually moved through. Closer to ground, less polished, more real. "You've done this route before?" she asked, more brusque than curious. "Yes," he said. "I drove for visiting executives from our Latin American branch last quarter. They hated sitting in traffic." "Latin America," she repeated. "You speak Spanish?" His eyes met hers briefly in the mirror. "Yes," he said. "And Portuguese, Italian, French, German, Dutch, Russian, Arabic, Mandarin, and English." She stared at him. "That's cute," she said. "A multilingual chauffeur." He didn't respond. He just turned the wheel to avoid a delivery truck and slid them neatly back into a faster lane, shaving precious minutes off their arrival time. Helena checked her watch. They were going to make it. Barely. Her heart rate eased, but her ego did not. 10 languages and you're driving a car, she said, unable to resist the jab. "Maybe you should have focused on one that actually pays." It was ugly. She knew it the second it left her mouth. This time, the pause was longer. "I focused on the ones that kept my family alive," he said quietly. The job title came later. The answer hit her like a mirror. She didn't ask to look into. She wanted to ask what he meant. She didn't. The part of her that was human flickered. The part of her that was CEO stamped it out. Feelings were distractions. Distractions lost deals. "Just get me there," she said. "Yes, ma'am," he repeated. The car surged forward, weaving through the city. The building where everything would happen. The top floor boardroom where a $1.2 billion deal would live or die rose into view, all glass and steel and guarded entrances. Helena gathered her bag, her phone, her armor. The door opened. Security greeted her. Cameras flashed as one reporter caught sight of her. She stepped out without looking back. She didn't see the way Marco watched her walk inside, a complicated mix of respect, sadness, and something like resignation in his eyes. He had been called many things in his life: immigrant, widower, driver, invisible. By the end of that day, another word would join the list: savior. If this kind of story about power, humility, and unexpected heroes speaks to you, take a moment right now to subscribe to the channel. It's a small gesture, but it helps this story reach more people and nos aproxima de nos meta de mil inscritos. Sem caber o clima de narrativa. From the moment Helena disappeared into the revolving doors, the building seemed to swallow her. The polished marble lobby reflected her heels, her posture, her carefully chosen image. Up there on the top floor, she was the sun around which everyone else orbited. Down here, Marco eased the car away from the entrance and into the waiting area, reserved for company drivers. The engine quieted to a low purr. He shifted into park, checked the clock, and allowed himself one long, slow breath. On the seat beside him, his phone buzzed. A photo filled the screen. A little girl with dark curls and missing front teeth, holding up a drawing of what appeared to be a car and a rocket ship fused together. Underneath, in wobbly letters, "Papai." A voice message followed. "Daddy, I had my test today. I think I did good. Can we practice French tonight? I want to say the poem without looking. Love you. Don't forget to eat. He replayed it twice, letting the sound of his daughter's voice soften the edges of the morning. French tonight, he murmured to himself. Okay, Pequeña, we'll do French. He typed a quick reply. Proud of you. Studying in the car now. We'll practice tonight. I love you. He hit send, then reached into the small compartment in the door and pulled out a dog-eared notebook. Inside, the pages were filled with columns of words, phrases in different languages, handwritten notes, circled idioms, arrows connecting similar expressions across linguistic borders. He flipped to a page marked with a paperclip. On it were terms related to negotiations, contracts, and mergers in German and Dutch. He traced a line under a phrase about non-binding term sheets and whispered the words under his breath. First in one language, then another. For a man who just drove, his life had never been simple. He had grown up in a neighborhood where people swapped languages the way other people swapped jackets. Spanish at home, Portuguese with a Brazilian bakery owner, English with teachers, a bit of Italian from the old men playing cards in the square. Later, refugee families from further away brought new sounds. Arabic and hurried prayers, Russian and low conversations, Mandarin and the chatter of the small grocery store that stayed open late. As a boy, Marco had absorbed them without trying. Words stuck to him. Accents fascinated him. He mimicked sounds and rhythms until people laughed and said he sounded like one of us. His father called it a gift. His teachers called it a distraction. Life didn't give him time to decide who was right. At 19, he married the girl he'd loved since they were both too young to name what they felt. At 24, he held his newborn daughter in a hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and hope. At 29, he stood by a grave, holding a tiny hand that squeezed his fingers until they hurt. Cancer doesn't care how many languages you speak. The hospital bills came in one language, numbers, cold, unyielding numbers. He worked wherever he could. Interpreter, call center, night shift at a warehouse, freelance translation gigs that paid late, if at all, driving jobs, anything that kept the lights on, and his daughter in school, driving for executives paid better than most. It also came with a strange kind of anonymity. People trusted the car, but rarely looked at the person controlling it. They talked in the back seat as if he were part of the upholstery. Strategies, affairs, lawsuits, scandals, fear, arrogance. He caught pieces of their lives in the mirror, like reflections at odd angles. He had watched men boast about deals that would close factories and put hundreds out of work. He had seen women cry quietly after pretending to be unshakable in meetings. He had listened to arguments in languages they assumed he didn't understand. They were almost always wrong. 10 languages had not made him rich. 10 languages had not saved his wife. 10 languages did not change the fact that, on his daughter's school forms, his occupation was still listed as driver. But 10 languages had kept him employed. 10 languages had allowed him to negotiate with a landlord who spoke only Portuguese, to argue with an insurance adjuster in precise, technical English, to comfort a terrified refugee in Arabic while filling out intake forms. 10 languages had made survival possible. And today, as he sat outside a skyscraper where a $1.2 billion deal was being negotiated behind glass walls, those same 10 languages sat quietly in his mind waiting for a moment no one could foresee. He put the notebook away when security tapped on his window and reminded him about parking regulations. He moved the car to the designated waiting zone, killed the engine, and leaned his head back. For a second, his mind drifted to the comment Helena had made. 10 languages and you're driving a car. The words had stung, not because of the insult, but because of the familiarity. He'd heard variations of it his whole life. So smart and this is what you do? Why don't you get a real job? You're wasting your talent. They all said the same thing. Value is measured by title, not by what you carry inside. He could have been bitter. Sometimes, late at night, but most days, he chose something else. He chose to see his life as a bridge, between countries, between classes, between people who never sat in the same room, but whose decisions affected each other's lives. He was not in the boardroom where Helena Rhodes would face off against European executives. He would never sit at that table. No one would slide a contract toward him and ask for his signature. But as he closed his eyes and listened to the low hum of the city outside, he had a feeling, the kind he'd learned not to ignore. Today, his job might be more than getting someone from point A to point B. Today, the world that never looked at him might finally have to see him. In the boardroom, everything was perfect and wrong. The long oval table gleamed under recessed lighting. A wall of glass looked out over the city skyline. The buildings below reduced to models in a display case. Bottles of imported water and delicate porcelain cups sat at every place setting. Screens on the wall showed the company logo and the title of the meeting in sharp corporate font. Helena stood at the head of the table, composed, jacket unbuttoned just enough to signal confidence rather than rigidity. Her team flanked her, legal, finance, strategy, public relations, each with their own stack of documents and digital tablets. Across from them sat the European delegation. They were exactly what she expected and nothing like she'd hoped. The lead negotiator, a silver-haired man in his 60s named Henrik Vogel, had the kind of face that looked carved rather than aged. His expression was polite, but unreadable. Beside him sat a younger woman with sharp eyes and a notebook full of handwritten notes. Two other advisors sat slightly back, like shadows. Introductions were made, hands shaken, pleasantries exchanged. Shall we proceed in English? Henrik asked in lightly accented tones. Of course, Helena said, unless you prefer otherwise. English is fine, he replied, for the official parts. She caught the nuance. Official parts. Her own advisors shifted slightly. One of them shot her a look that said, be careful. The presentation began smoothly. Her team outlined the terms of the merger, valuation, projected synergies, integration timelines. The numbers were compelling. The strategic fit was undeniable. Shareholders on both sides had been salivating for months. Henrik listened, fingers steepled, eyes sharp. He asked intelligent questions. His younger colleague interjected occasionally, clarifying small points, taking precise notes. If Helena had been watching only the slides and the data, she would have felt confident. But years of experience had taught her to watch faces, not just spreadsheets. Something was off. Henrik's eyes flicked occasionally toward one of his back row advisors, a man in his 50s with a narrow face and restless hands. Each time a certain clause appeared on the screen, the advisor's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Helena saw it. So did her head of legal. Midway through the discussion of risk-sharing provisions, the first crack appeared. We appreciate your thoroughness, Henrik said smoothly, but we have some concerns about the non-compete terms in Section 12. Her legal chief leaned forward. Those terms mirror what we agreed in the preliminary memorandum, she said. They're standard for a transaction of this magnitude. In English, yes, Henrik replied, but our internal draft in German phrased things slightly differently. Some members of our board are uneasy. He slid a document across the table. The top sheet was in English. The one beneath it, barely visible, was in German. Helena felt a flicker of annoyance. Games. Always games. Our translators reviewed all foreign language versions, her legal chief said. They confirmed alignment. The devil is always in the nuance, Henrik said pleasantly. I'm sure your translators are excellent. Ours are as well. There seems to be a divergence in interpretation regarding future market access. In other words, we think your wording gives you more power than we intended. It wasn't unusual. It was, in fact, expected. But the timing was dangerous. This kind of objection could be used as leverage to demand better terms or to stall until a rival consortium swooped in with their own offer. Helena kept her tone even. We're happy to walk through those sections line by line, she said, in both languages. The younger woman beside Henrik spoke up for the first time. There is also the matter of the arbitration jurisdiction, she said. Her English was excellent, but every so often, she glanced at her notes, where phrases were written in tight German script. Some of our stakeholders feel that the current proposal favors your legal environment disproportionately. Her legal chief jumped in again. International arbitration in London is standard. For some, Henrik interrupted gently. For others, it raises historical sensitivities. Helena's pulse ticked up a notch. Historical sensitivities. It was the kind of phrase that could mean anything or everything. The conversation shifted. English remained the official language, but small side comments in German began to slip in. At first, they were simple, quick clarifications muttered asides. Then they grew longer. Helena's translators, patched in remotely through headsets, whispered their interpretations into her team's ears. But there was a delay, a beat and a half where meaning moved slower than tone. And tone was changing fast. Across the table, the restless advisor leaned toward Henrik and spoke more freely now in his own language. The younger woman nodded, adding her own observations. There was a word that kept appearing, one Helena didn't catch exactly, but whose repetition made her uneasy. Her translator murmured something about overreach and hidden disadvantage. She felt irritation harden into something closer to alarm. "Is there a problem we're not addressing?" she asked, keeping her voice level. Henrik smiled, the picture of diplomacy. "Not a problem," he said, merely caution. When numbers are this large, we must be certain that all parties see the same picture. Behind his politeness, she heard it. Doubt, growing, spreading, looking for a place to anchor. Her phone buzzed silently on the table. A message from her assistant flashed. Competing consortium rumored to be making alternative approach this afternoon. Timing critical. Of course they were. Sharks smell blood. "We suggest a short break," Henrik said. 15 minutes. Time to confer with our advisors and ensure we are all aligned internally before proceeding. It was reasonable. It was also dangerous. Breaks were when deals died. Helena hesitated, then nodded. 15 minutes, she said. No more. The delegation stood, gathering their papers. As they moved toward the side room provided for them, she heard a low exchange in German between Henrik and the narrow-faced advisor. Her translator's voice came through a second later, slightly flustered. "They're saying something about better terms elsewhere and not being desperate," the translator murmured. "And Americans never read the fine print in other languages." Heat rose in Helena's chest. "They think we're blind," she thought. She didn't yet know how right and how wrong they were, because outside, in the driver's area, sat a man who not only read the fine print in other languages, he thought in them. The hallway outside the boardroom smelled faintly of coffee and stress. Helena stood with her back to the glass, arms folded, staring at the closed door that separated her from the European delegation. Her team murmured around her, their voices low and tense. "We've got a problem," her head of legal said. "They're using the German draft to question intent. If they decide the language is unfavorable, they can stall or walk. Can we fix it on the fly?" Helena asked. "Maybe," legal replied. "But they're clearly fishing for ammunition. And there's something else." She hesitated. "What?" Helena snapped. "The advisor in the back," legal said quietly. "He keeps using a dialect." Our translator flagged it. "It's close to standard German, but some of the phrases aren't translating cleanly. There's nuance we might be missing." "So we're half a step behind in 2 languages," Helena said. "Perfect." Her phone buzzed again, another message. Rumor confirmed. Competing consortium has approached 2 of their board members privately. They're promising better terms on regional autonomy. If the Europeans walk now, they might never come back. Her chest tightened. For years, Helena had prided herself on being the smartest person in every room. She spoke 2 languages fluently, could read basic legal French, and had a team of world-class translators on call. But right now it wasn't enough. A quiet knock sounded on the open door. One of the building security coordinators stepped in. "Ms. Rhodes," he said. "Sorry to interrupt. Your driver's asking if there'll be any change to your departure time. He's waiting in the reserved lane. Wants to make sure he won't get towed." "Of all the things to care about right now, tell him to wait," she said, waving a hand. "This could take a while." The coordinator nodded, then hesitated. He also asked. He frowned, searching for the right words. He heard some of the German through the speakers outside. Said if there's a problem with dialects, he might be able to help. He speaks it. Helena blinked. Who does? Your driver. The coordinator said. Marco. He said he speaks German and Dutch and a couple of others I didn't recognize. Her team exchanged glances. Helena almost laughed. The absurdity of it. We have professional translators, she said. I'm not pulling my driver into a multi-billion-dollar negotiation because he watched foreign films with subtitles. I understand, the coordinator said quickly. He just asked me to pass the message along. Said he heard the word Rucksack and something about Vertrauensbruch. He stumbled over pronunciation, embarrassed. At that, Helena's legal chief stiffened. They said Rucksack, she asked sharply. That's withdrawal. And Vertrauensbruch is breach of trust. Helena's pulse kicked harder. You're sure? She asked. That's what he told me, the coordinator said. He seemed pretty certain. Silence settled over the small group. Her head of strategy spoke up. If they're talking about withdrawal and breach of trust in the hallway, he said, they're further along the exit path than we thought. Helena ran a hand through her hair, mind racing. This driver, legal said carefully, if he really does understand a dialect, he might catch nuances our remote translator is missing, especially if they switch to something more regional to hide intent. It's insane, Helena muttered, bringing a driver into this. More insane than losing a $1.2 billion deal because we were deaf in the right language? Strategy countered. The room went quiet again. Helena was not used to needing anyone outside her carefully curated circle. She didn't like the feeling. It made her skin itch. But she liked the idea of being blindsided even less. Where is he? She asked. Downstairs in the vehicle lane, the coordinator said. Bring him up, she said. Now, quietly, and don't tell anyone else what we're doing. As the coordinator left, her assistant whispered, Are you sure about this? No, Helena said, but I'm sure I'm not losing this deal because I was too proud to accept help from someone I mocked this morning. The admission tasted bitter. Minutes later, Marco stood in the doorway of the side conference room, still in his driver's uniform, shoulders square but eyes alert. He looked out of place among the suits and power dresses, but he didn't look intimidated. Ms. Rhodes, he said with a small nod. Close the door, she told her assistant. Then to Marco, You heard some of their German? Yes, he said. In the lobby, the audio feed from the boardroom leaks a little near the security desk. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I just recognized some words. Which ones? Her legal chief asked. Rucksack, he said. They used it twice. And Vertrauensbruch. And another phrase, Basir Carnanderswo. Better cards elsewhere. They were talking about having better options. Her team exchanged grim looks. And you're sure about that? Helena asked. I'm fluent, he said simply. My late wife was from a region near the border. Her family spoke a mix of standard German and dialect. I learned to keep up. He could have bragged. He didn't. He just explained. Helena studied him. The man she had dismissed as a multilingual chauffeur was standing in front of her with information her entire expensive apparatus had missed. What other languages do you speak? She asked, already knowing the answer but needing to hear it again. He listed them calmly. Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French, German, Dutch, Russian, Arabic, Mandarin, English. Her strategy chief let out a low whistle. Here's what I need to know, Helena said, forcing herself to focus. If they switch fully into German or Dutch to discuss their real concerns, can you understand not just the words, but the implications? Yes, he said. Language carries culture. Some expressions mean more than their literal translation. Her legal chief stepped in. We don't have the luxury of caution, she said. We need every edge. Having someone who can catch tone and subtext in real time could be the difference between adjusting terms and watching them walk out the door and straight into our competitor's arms. Helena met Marco's eyes. This is confidential, she said. If you come into that room, you're not a driver. You're part of the negotiation. If you repeat anything you hear to anyone outside this floor, it won't just be your job on the line. Do you understand that? Yes, ma'am, he said. I do. And if you come in, she added, you're stepping into a world where people will assume you don't belong. They will look down on you. They will speak in circles to confuse you. They will test you. Can you handle that? He almost smiled. Ms. Rhodes, he said softly, I've lived my whole life in worlds where people assumed I didn't belong. I'm still here. Her chest tightened. There was something like shame in it. Fine, she said. You're in. You'll sit beside legal. Say nothing unless I ask you to. Listen to everything. If you hear something our translators are missing, anything about walking, better offers, jurisdiction, or hidden conditions, you let me know immediately. Understood? Understood, he said, as they walked back toward the boardroom together. Helena felt a strange inversion of power. For the first time since she'd built her empire, she was stepping into a critical meeting knowing that the most important person on her side was the one the world thought was there to hold her door. The Europeans returned from their break with smooth faces and sharpened intentions. Henrik's smile was polite. The younger woman's eyes seemed brighter, more calculating. The restless advisor in the back had straightened in his chair as if preparing for a performance. Helena took her seat at the head of the table. To her right sat her legal chief. To legal's right sat Marco. He'd removed his jacket, revealing a simple white shirt and dark tie. To an untrained eye, he might have looked like a junior staffer or an assistant. Only the faint crease lines at the cuffs and the quiet intensity in his eyes betrayed that this was not his usual environment. The Europeans noticed him almost immediately. Henrik's gaze flicked toward Marco, then back to Helena. A new member of your team? He asked lightly. Internal advisor, Helena said without missing a beat. Takes notes. Flags things I might miss. It wasn't entirely a lie. The translator's voice murmured through hidden earpieces. Still on the line, but now no longer the only bridge between languages. We appreciate efficiency, Henrik said. Shall we continue? They resumed. At first, the conversation stayed in English. They reviewed sections on shared liability, intellectual property, market access. Then the narrow-faced advisor in the back leaned toward Henrik and spoke in German, not bothering to lower his voice. Marco's head tilted almost imperceptibly, listening. The translator in Helena's ear whispered, he's saying, push harder on the regional autonomy. They need this more than we do. If they resist, we have better options. Marco frowned slightly. Ms. Rhodes, he said quietly, his voice pitched just for her and legal to hear. He didn't just say better options. He said, they are more desperate than they admit. Mention the other offer without naming it. The translator had missed that second part. Helena's jaw tightened. So they were planning to weaponize the rumor of the rival consortium. Thank you, she murmured, eyes never leaving Henrik's face. A few minutes later, as they dug deeper into arbitration jurisdictions, the younger woman beside Henrik spoke in German to her colleagues, assuming the English-speaking side wouldn't catch the shift in temperature. The translator murmured something about distrust of foreign courts. Marco's brows drew together. She said, our board will never accept London. Too much old baggage. If they insist, we can accuse them of bad faith and walk. The other group already promised neutral ground. Legal's eyes widened. Without Marco's clarification, they would have heard only a general discomfort. With it, Helena heard a threat. Give us what we want, or we'll paint you as the aggressor and leave. Helena let the conversation play out a little longer, gathering threads. Then she struck. Mr. Vogel, she said suddenly, switching her gaze from the slide on the screen to his face. It seems we should stop pretending this is only about language. He blinked, genuinely surprised. Pardon? You've raised concerns about German phrasing and jurisdiction, she said. Your team has mentioned historical sensitivities and internal unease. You've referenced other options without naming them. Let's put the cards on the table. The restless advisor shifted, clearly not expecting to be called out. I assure you, Henrik began, we are merely exercising due diligence. In English, Helena cut in, your caution sounds reasonable. In German, your advisors have used terms like withdrawal, breach of trust, and better cards elsewhere. They've discussed accusing us of bad faith if we don't concede on jurisdiction. They've mentioned a rival group promising neutral ground. The room went very still. Henrik's eyes flicked toward his team, then back to her. You understood that? He asked slowly. My company operates on every continent, Helena said coolly. Did you really think we'd walk into a $1.2 billion negotiation without understanding the languages in the room? Her legal chief hid a small smile. Let me be clear, Helena continued. We are prepared to adjust phrasing to ensure mutual clarity. We are willing to consider alternative arbitration venues that respect both sides' histories. But we are not negotiating under veiled threats of public accusations or phantom offers. Silence. The younger woman's cheeks flushed. The narrow-faced advisor looked like he'd swallowed something bitter. Henrik studied Helena with newfound respect. My apologies, he said slowly. It seems we underestimated your preparedness. It happens, she said. Cultural bias is a stubborn thing. People see what they expect to see. A woman, an American, a team. They assume certain limitations. Her words hung in the air. And yet, Henrik said, eyes sliding briefly toward Marco, one of your internal advisors appears to have caught nuances our own translators did not anticipate being understood. It was the first direct acknowledgement. Helena didn't look at Marco. She kept her gaze on Henrik. My company values people who understand what others assume they don't, she said. It has kept us alive more than once. The message was clear. Underestimate us at your own risk. From that moment, the tone of the meeting shifted. The Europeans still pressed. They still questioned. But the easy assumption that they could speak freely in German without consequence evaporated. Every time one of them slipped into dialect, Henrik shot them a quick, warning glance. They had realized, too late, that the room was not as blind as they believed. Beside Helena, Marco continued to listen, occasionally leaning in to murmur a clarification. Sometimes he confirmed what the translator said. Sometimes he caught an extra layer of sarcasm or skepticism. Once, he warned Helena that a seemingly harmless phrase actually implied, in that region's business culture, we don't intend to honor this later. Each time, his quiet interjections allowed her to respond not just to the words on the surface, but to the intentions underneath. By the time lunch was brought in, the balance of power had tilted back toward center. No one in that room, with the possible exception of Henrik, fully understood how it had happened. They just knew that the woman at the head of the table had eyes and ears where they hadn't expected them. And the man they'd assumed was there to carry her bag had become the most dangerous person on her side. The formal session broke for lunch. Caterers moved in with silent efficiency, setting out trays of food too fancy to be comforting. Small talk buzzed along the edges of the room as people used to pause to reset masks and recalibrate strategies. Helena stepped away from the main cluster and into a smaller adjoining room, the kind of neutral space used for informal conversations that often mattered more than the official agenda. Marco stood near the window, hands loosely at his sides, eyes on the city below. From up here, the streets looked like lines on a map. The people were dots. Not bad for a driver, she said lightly. He turned, the hint of a smile touching his face. Not bad for a CEO, he replied. She snorted softly. Sit, she said, gesturing to a small round table. He hesitated. Is that allowed? He asked. In this room with me, yes, she said. Sit. He did. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It felt fragile, like a bridge still being tested. You saved that session, she said finally. Without you, they could have boxed us into a corner before we even realized what was happening. I helped, he said. You did the saving. I just interpreted. That's not how I see it, she said. She watched him, really watched him, in a way she had in the car that morning. Why are you driving? She asked bluntly. 10 languages. That level of cultural understanding. You could be in international strategy, diplomatic services, intelligence. Why a steering wheel? He thought about how to answer. I needed work, he said simply. Work that paid consistently. Work that allowed me to be there when my daughter wakes up and when she goes to sleep. Driving gave me that. You couldn't find that with your skills? She pressed. I found pieces, he said. Interpreting contracts part-time. Translating technical manuals. Working as a liaison for an NGO for a while. But those jobs came and went. Funding dried up. Contracts ended. This, he gestured vaguely toward the building, is stable. And stability is a luxury when you're raising a child alone. A flicker of discomfort crossed her face. I made an assumption about you this morning, she said. Several, actually. I noticed, he said, but there was no venom in it. I saw a uniform and a delay, and I assumed incompetence, she continued. I saw driver and assumed limited ambition. I heard father and assumed distraction, and then I made a joke that I regret. He looked at her evenly. I've heard worse, he said. That doesn't excuse it, she replied. He held her gaze, weighing her sincerity. My wife died 5 years ago, he said. Our daughter was 3. There was a lot I couldn't control. I couldn't stop the cancer. I couldn't make the treatments work. I couldn't promise my little girl that everything would be okay and mean it. He paused, eyes drifting to the window again. But I could make sure there was food, he continued. I could make sure the rent was paid. I could make sure she never heard me tell someone. Sorry, I can't be there because my job owns me. He looked back at her. Driving gave me that, he said. And the languages, they came with me. They always do. She felt something tighten in her chest. I grew up with a father who was never home, she said quietly. Chasing promotions. Chasing respect. Chasing something. We had money. We didn't have him. When he finally looked up, I was already gone. She hadn't planned to say that. It just slipped out. Did you respect him? Marco asked gently. She considered. I feared him, she said. I admired what he built. I resented what it cost. I don't know if that adds up to respect. He nodded as if that made sense. My daughter respects presence, he said. She doesn't care what my business card says. She cares that I hear her French poem. A small, reluctant smile touched Helena's lips. French, she said. So that's tonight's assignment. Yes, he said. Last week it was Italian verbs. Before that, Arabic greetings. She wants to speak to the whole world someday. I figure I can give her a head start. The simplicity of it undid her more than any sob story could have. Do you ever feel like you're wasting your talent? She asked. Sometimes, he admitted. At 2 a.m, when I'm too tired to study, and I wonder what life might have been if one big break had gone my way. And then, she asked, and then I remember that my daughter is asleep in a warm bed in a safe building, he said. That she eats breakfast and goes to school and comes home to someone who can help with her homework in whatever language she throws at me. And I think maybe this is what my talent is for. She looked down at her hands. How many people like you have I dismissed? She asked, more to herself than to him. How many skills have I walked past because they didn't come in the right packaging? I can't answer that, he said. But I know this. People underestimate others the way they underestimate themselves. If you think you're only your title, you'll assume everyone else is only theirs too. The line hit her like a verdict. Only my title, she repeated. In there, he said, nodding toward the boardroom. You're the CEO. Out here. You're also the woman who remembered to bring someone like me into that room when it mattered. Both can be true. She exhaled slowly. Marco, she said, when this is over, if we close this deal, I want to talk to you again, not as a driver, as something else. He raised an eyebrow. Something like, what? I don't know yet, she said, but I'd be an idiot to let 10 languages walk in and out of my life, carrying only my keys. This time, when he smiled, it reached his eyes. First, let's make sure the deal closes, he said. Then we can talk about keys. Afternoon shadows stretched across the boardroom floor as the two sides reconvened. Everyone was tired now. Voices a little rougher. Jokes thinner. The sugar high from dessert had worn off. This was a dangerous part of any negotiation. When fatigue made people careless and impatience made them ruthless. They had resolved most of the major issues. Valuation agreed. market access structured, intellectual property protections balanced. Only one point remained truly contentious: jurisdiction and enforcement. Given our history, Henrik said, some of our stakeholders are uneasy with London as the arbitration venue. They feel it introduces biases beyond their control. We propose a panel structure that ensures neutrality, Helena's legal chief countered. Equal representation, clear rules, transparent procedures. The younger woman on Henrik's side leaned in. But perception matters, she said. Our board will ask why we conceded on this when other options exist. There was again other options. We could consider a split mechanism, Helena suggested. For certain disputes, a European venue. For others, London. The exact breakdown to be defined. Henrik's face revealed nothing, but the restless advisor in the back leaned forward, eyes glinting. He spoke in rapid German, faster than before, confident now that the finish line was in sight. The translator in Helena's ear stumbled, struggling to keep up. Marco's jaw tightened. He's saying, Marco murmured, just loud enough for Helena and legal, that if they push now, you'll cave on jurisdiction completely to protect the headline number. He suggests agreeing in English, then drafting their internal version in a way that allows them to reinterpret later. He used the phrase Schlupflock für später, a loophole for later. It was a trap. Agree now, twist later. Use dual language ambiguity as a hidden exit door. Helena's pulse thudded. Can you give me the exact wording? She asked under her breath. Marco repeated the phrase softly, pronunciation precise. Her legal chief's eyes narrowed. That's deliberate, she whispered. Not just nuance. They're planning to exploit the difference. Across the table, Henrik finished listening to his advisor and turned back to Helena with a pleasant smile. Perhaps, he said, we might propose that the official version of the agreement be drafted jointly in English and German, each to be considered equally authoritative. That way, neither side feels at a disadvantage. On the surface, it sounded fair, balanced, reasonable. Underneath, it was a minefield. Two equally authoritative texts in different languages meant endless room for selective interpretation later. In slow, low-stakes deals, it could sometimes be managed. In a transaction of this size, with competitors circling, it could become a weapon. Helena felt the weight of the moment pressed down on her. This was it, the pivot point. If she agreed as is, she risked handing them a hidden lever. If she refused outright, they might claim she was the unreasonable one and walk. She thought of her father, chasing respect at any cost. She thought of herself, earlier that morning, mocking a man whose skills she hadn't bothered to see. She thought of the countless people whose jobs and futures would be affected by this deal. Mr. Vogel, she said, keeping her voice calm, your proposal about dual authoritative texts is interesting, but there's a concern. He tilted his head. Concern? Yes, she said. Your advisor just suggested using the German version to preserve a loophole for later reinterpretation if things go poorly. The room froze. The translator on her side went silent. The translator on theirs stuttered, then fell quiet too. The restless advisor flushed red. That is a mischaracterization, he snapped in English, abandoning the safety of German. Marco spoke, for the first time in the full room. Actually, he said, voice even, accent faint but clear, you said, Schlupflock für später. That's not mischaracterization. That's your word. Every eye turned to him. Henrik looked between Marco and Helena, realization dawning. You speak German, he said slowly. And Dutch, Marco replied. Among others. And you believe it was appropriate, the restless advisor said sharply, to insert your interpretation into a high-level negotiation? Gentlemen, Helena said before it escalated, no one is inserting anything. We are simply acknowledging the reality in the room. She met Henrik's gaze directly. You have every right to protect your interests, she said. So do we. If we are to enter into a partnership of this magnitude, it cannot be built on the expectation that one side will hide escape hatches in translation. The younger woman shifted, uncomfortable. Henrik exhaled slowly. For the first time, he seemed tired. You put us in a difficult position, Ms. Rhodes, he said. If we withdraw now, it will be seen as confirmation that we intended bad faith. If we proceed, it will be under conditions that ensure we cannot adjust later. That's called transparency, she said. We're not asking for your disadvantage. We're asking for alignment. Silence stretched. Then Henrik turned to his team and spoke in German, slower this time, choosing his words carefully. We underestimated them, he said, and we allowed ourselves to consider tactics beneath us. That is on us. The narrow-faced advisor looked stunned. The younger woman's shoulders eased, as if relieved. Henrik turned back to Helena. Very well, he said. We will accept a single authoritative language for enforcement, English, with a certified translation into German for internal purposes. We will specify clearly that in case of conflict, the English version prevails. In exchange, you accept a neutral arbitration venue acceptable to both sides. Geneva, Helena said immediately. He smiled faintly. Geneva, he agreed. Her legal chief scribbled notes furiously. The trap had been disarmed. The deal could live, all because someone in the room had understood a word that wasn't meant to be heard. By the time the final signatures were placed on the thick stack of documents, the sun had dipped low enough to paint the boardroom in gold. Applause broke out, polite at first, then warmer. Hands were shaken again, this time with genuine weight behind the gestures. The cameras that had been kept outside were allowed in for a brief, controlled photo opportunity. $1.2 billion strategic alliance signed. The headlines would read within hours. But inside the room, something more subtle had shifted. As the photographers snapped their shots, Henrik stepped closer to Helena and lowered his voice. In my career, he said, I've seen many deals saved by lawyers, bankers, and politicians. Very few by drivers. Helena followed his gaze toward Marco, who stood slightly back, out of frame, watching quietly. I've seen many deals destroyed by underestimating people, she replied. I almost joined that list today. Henrik nodded. The man speaks with the cadence of someone who has lived in many worlds, he said. I would advise you not to keep him behind a wheel for long. I've already made that decision, she said. Henrik smiled, genuinely this time. Then perhaps we have both learned something today, he said. You about underestimation. We about assuming language is a wall instead of a bridge. As the delegation filed out, the younger woman paused in front of Marco. In another life, she said in fluent German, you would have been sitting at that table. He smiled back, answering in the same language. In this life, I'm exactly where I needed to be today. She nodded, a flicker of respect in her eyes. When the last of the Europeans left, Helena finally allowed herself to exhale fully. Her team began to disperse, pulled back into their own storms of email, follow-up, and implementation. She remained in the doorway for a moment, watching Marco. He stood near the far end of the table, straightening a stack of forgotten documents, habitually tidying a space he technically had no responsibility for. Old instincts, she thought. Invisible labor. Marco, she called. He straightened, walked toward her. Yes, Ms. Rhodes, he asked. Come with me, she said. They rode the private elevator down together. The mirrored walls reflected them back. Billionaire CEO and company driver, side by side, more equal in that small space than they had been 12 hours earlier. I'm not good at saying thank you, she said, eyes on the floor numbers. I noticed, he said dryly. She huffed a small laugh. But I am good at recognizing value, she continued. And what you did today went far beyond your job description. You didn't just translate words. You changed the outcome. He shrugged lightly. I just didn't want to see you get taken advantage of, he said. Or, more importantly, see everyone whose jobs depend on this deal get hurt because of a language trick. Most people would have stayed in the lane assigned to them, she said. You didn't. Most people don't know 10 languages, he replied. It felt wrong not to use what I had. The elevator doors opened into the quiet underground garage. Her car waited, glossy and still, right where he'd left it. He reached automatically for the passenger door to open it for her. Stop, she said. He froze, hand on the handle. You're not driving me home, she said. Not today. He frowned slightly. Did I? You did everything right, she said. That's the problem. I am not rewarding that by putting you back behind the wheel like nothing happened. He let his hand fall. What are you suggesting? He asked. She took a breath. There's an open position in our international strategy unit, she said. Junior role on paper, but with exposure to every major market. We've been trying to fill it with someone who understands Europe, Latin America, and at least one Asian region. We've interviewed a dozen candidates. None of them saved $1 billion deal for me today. He stared at her. You're offering me the strategy job? He asked. I'm offering you a path, she said. One that reflects who you are, not just where you ended up. It won't be glamorous at first. Lots of data, lots of travel, lots of people underestimating you in new ways. But it will pay more, and it will use what you have. He swallowed. My daughter, he began. We'll make it work, she said. You'll still be home most nights. When travel is required, we'll plan it. You won't lose what matters. I won't let that be the price. Silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of possibility. Finally, he said, I don't have a degree from your world. No fancy school. No alphabet soup after my name. I noticed, she said. I also noticed you understood legal nuance in 3 languages today faster than some people with doctorates. People will talk, he warned, a driver moving into strategy. Let them, she said. If they have a problem, they can come to me. I don't answer people who confuse status with competence. He looked at her, really looked, as if seeing a different person than the one who'd stepped into his car that morning. What changed? He asked quietly. She thought of her joke, of his story, of the way her father had chased respect and left emptiness behind. I did, she said. Or maybe I just finally saw myself clearly through someone else's eyes. He nodded slowly. Then yes, he said. I accept. She held out her hand. He took it. In that handshake, a new contract was signed. Not written on paper, written in trust. Weeks later, the story had already become legend inside the company. They called it the day the driver saved the merger. No official memo used those words, of course. But in quiet conversations, in late-night emails, in knowing glances exchanged in hallways, the narrative spread. On the surface, nothing about the public version had changed. Press releases credited rigorous negotiation, cross-cultural collaboration, and innovative leadership. Helena's name appeared in headlines. So did Henrik's. But inside, among the people who'd been there, the truth was never in doubt. One evening, Helena stood on a stage in an internal town hall, facing hundreds of employees in person and thousands more watching via live stream. The agenda was simple: update the company on the merger's progress, outline new opportunities, rally everyone around the next phase. She did all of that. She talked about integration plans, market expansion, investments in technology. She thanked the teams who had worked through weekends and holidays. Then she paused. There's one more thing I need to say, she added. Something that won't show up in external reports, but that matters deeply to me. The room quieted. On the day we closed this deal, she said, we almost lost it. She described briefly the language issue, the subtle trap, the moment it could have tipped the wrong way. I was prepared, she said. We had excellent translators, brilliant lawyers, experienced strategists. But in that room, in that critical moment, the person who caught the hidden danger was not someone with a senior title. She let the silence lengthen. It was our driver, she said. A ripple went through the crowd. Some of you know him, she continued. His name is Marco Alvarez. He's a widowed father. He speaks 10 languages. He listened when he could have stayed silent. He stepped forward when he could have stayed in his lane. He helped save a $1.2 billion deal. Not because it was his job, but because it was the right thing to do. She gestured to the side of the stage. Marco stepped into the light. He wasn't in a driver's uniform anymore. He wore a simple suit, no tie, company badge clipped to his jacket. International Strategy Unit. The applause started hesitantly, then grew, rolling forward like a wave. He looked momentarily overwhelmed, then steadied himself, nodding once in acknowledgement. I tell you this, Helena said over the noise, because I want everyone in this company to understand something I forgot for a while. Talent doesn't always come wrapped in the package you expect. Insight doesn't always sit at the head of the table. Sometimes, the person who keeps the engine running literally is the one who can see what everyone else misses. She let her gaze sweep the room. If you're sitting here today in a role that the world calls small, support staff, driver, assistant, technician, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not small to me. Not anymore. I will never again mistake job title for human value. In the front rows, some people wiped their eyes. In the back, a few stood. And if you're sitting in a position of power, she added, voice firm, I challenge you. Look again at the people you think you already know. The ones who open your doors, carry your bags, schedule your meetings, clean your offices. You may be ignoring the person who will save your career one day. Later, when the event ended and the crowd thinned, Helena and Marco stood together at the edge of the stage. You didn't have to do that, he said quietly. Yes, she replied. I did. People will say you're making a show of humility, he warned. Let them, she said. I'm not responsible for their narratives, only for mine. He smiled. How's your daughter's French poem? She asked. He grinned. Perfect, he said. She wants to learn Japanese next. Of course she does, Helena said, laughing softly. When she's ready for an internship, tell her to call me first. He raised an eyebrow. You planning that far ahead? I'm learning from you, she said. Never underestimate what someone can become if you stop seeing them as just a role they play today. As they left the auditorium, side by side, Helena thought back to that morning in the car. The careless joke, the impatience, the blindness. If he had stayed silent, she would still be that woman, powerful, respected, and dangerously incomplete. Instead, she had been forced to see. The deal she saved wasn't just a $1.2 billion merger. It was a deal she renegotiated with herself. To never again mock what she did not understand. To never again confuse money with worth. To never again treat someone as background simply because they held a different set of keys. And somewhere in a small apartment lit by the glow of a desk lamp and scattered language books, a little girl practiced a French poem, unaware that her father had helped rewrite the story of a company, and the heart of the woman who led it